A day may come when the rage of men breaks, when they forsake their friends and break all bonds of fellowship. An hour of Demigryph knights, creeping barrages, poopy peasants, and steam, as the Empire and Bretonnia decide that xenophobia isn't quite enough. On one side, we have the Empire, and a very angry steam tank, the finest example of Imperial engineering. Das Anno, belching cannonballs across the battlefield, and on the other side, the Peasanttide, a horde of filthy, diseased abominations that would make Nurgle run in terror, with a damsel and some knightly valor in support. I am commanding the Empire, Shetland Apache is commanding the Bretonnians, and we're doing something a little bit different today, because we're actually on 40 unit cap. Quite a few tournaments now are starting to do this. We're basically keeping funds at default, but raising the unit cap to give more tactical options to the players. So if you're a Horde style faction, it lets you run with more bodies on the field. So that really benefits Bretonnia, benefits Skaven, benefits any of those factions that have very cheap meat shields, where they can kind of just swarm you with bodies and numbers. So for the Empire, it's a very elite army. Silver Bullets, Hammer of the Witches, Demigryph Knights with Halberds, and a steam tank backed up by Jade Wizard and Archlector. Now that is a very common combination with Demigryph Knights with Halberds. It's one of the best ways to get the most value out of them. You heal them up, give them great ward saves, and they are going to be trucking through lots of Bretonnian cavalry. On the other side, the Bretonnians have two Paladins, and that's where a lot of the anti-large killing power is going to come from. That double goon squad can be very potent against steam tanks, against enemy cavalry, against that sort of thing, but really, Shetland Apache's build is focused on the Peasanttide itself. Look at how many bodies are on the field here. Now, that's not the easiest thing in the world to micro. That is a huge number of troops, more than 2,000, and a lot of units to keep control of. But one of the benefits it gives you is it allows you to completely surround an opponent, get into their back line, and just swarm them all over the field. Could be very interesting to see how that works out. A damsel with the Lore of Heavens, so we've got Wind Blast, Chain Lightning, and Assault of Stone, and that is going to be the builds for both sides. So as the battle begins, honestly, this kind of army composition reminds me of why I really want a Vermintide expansion set in Bretonnia, where the peasants rise up, and with their pitchforks, rocking them kind of like in the Crazies, they just kind of swarm the Bretonnian fiefdoms and their castles, and you just have to be a feudal knight who defends his homeland against the uprising diseased peasants that try to come and murder your family. I think that would be hilarious and definitely a game worth playing. But as the battle begins here, peasants are moving up under a withering salvo of cannon fire, and Demigryph Knights have an opportunity to just tear out some stuff on the field, right? When they leave that much open in the middle of the line, might as well go in and get some free charges in. Peasant archers are not going to be able to do anywhere near enough damage to the Demigryph Knights to matter, and so we can just kind of go in and get a free charge and do some damage to the front line. Now, the cannonballs from that steam tank are going to be a pretty big threat to those Knights of the Realm. Anytime they get in range, Hammer of the Witches and steam tank will focus them down, and those are some of the bigger threats on the field, obviously. They can't go toe-to-toe with Demigryph Knights at all, but they can kind of use those peasants as screens and then sneak in behind and kill those Silver Bullets or the Hammer of the Witches, and we don't want that. So another shot coming in will knock some more Knights off their horses, doing some very good damage early, and just trying to equalize those numbers a bit before things get into melee. Nice Wind Blast coming in from the Prophetess, doing some very nice work there, but she's also taking some fire from the Silver Bullets and from the cannon. She will need to extricate herself from that situation, or it's going to be very bad news for her. Steam Tank and Demigryphs going forward, and yeah, those are spears, but again, nobody cares. Terror out. These are peasants that'll run them through, then run through the next wave, and Steam Tank gets some point-blank volleys in as well. The Steam Tank, honestly, is going to be very tough for this Bretonnian army to deal with. The two Paladins, if they get on top of it, can certainly kill it relatively quickly. Problem is, those Demigryph Knights and the Archlector will always be on patrol, and Knights of the Realm on this side getting shish kebabbed from artillery fire. Hammer of the Witches is one of the best artillery pieces in the game, especially when shooting at anti-large stuff, and seriously, those Knights are getting destroyed anytime they come into range, and they had their flank turn, which is absolutely the worst thing possible if you're cavalry, because it means a cannonball will just penetrate through the entire formation and hit and kill anything along the way. Steam Tank moving super slow and try to get into the back line of those peasant mob and run them over. As soon as it touches home, pretty much should be a tear route instantly. Steam Gun going to work too, and just gonna pancake some stuff in the back, or, well, didn't even touch them there. Just dry humping the air at the moment. Finally, tear route, and gonna move down the line and continue trying to do that. Such a versatile unit. Love alternating between range and melee. Really shows off the power of Imperial Engineering. And here, a big gap opened up in the Bretonnian side of things. If the Demigryph Knights go through those Peasant Archers, they can then move right and go all the way down, sweeping the line up from behind, and really mess up the Bretonnians in the rear. So here we go. Huge charge coming in. Demigryph Knights, just a massive wall of armor, metal, and muscle. And they're going to bull right through them. Demigryph Knights with halberds and the Royal Altar of Griffites into the Knights of the Realm, which is a nightmare engagement for Bretonnia, especially when you consider the fact they're buffed up by that Archlector and heals too. So an Overcast Earthblood going to go their way and terror routing on that side. Now, again, Bretonnia, they're going to rout a lot this game. That's kind of irrelevant in its own way. It's much more important that they can get back into the fight later on and continue swarming with those bodies. Wave after wave, they have not been able to shut down the back line yet. The Paladins were on the hunt, looking for the steam tank. Kind of sat still for a minute there. These Peasant Archers getting run over, and the first 5 minutes have not gone the way of the Prima Nocta boys. Kind of been a hellish situation so far. Let's see if those Paladins can shift that and write it back. They do have an avenue to go right at those Hammer of the Witches, and so do the Knights of the Realm. As the battle lines begin to break down, more and more troops have to go in, and then the reserves are forced to commit, and that can leave the artillery open, and they will charge in and start carving up that artillery crew. But the silver bullets are right there. They are in range, and their magical armor-piercing shots will find the mark and start killing what remains of those Knights of the Realm. And with the cavalry mostly dead for Bretonnia, it definitely hurts their chances. Nice chain lightning, though. Also killed some of their own number, but, you know, killing a couple poopy peasants, not a very big deal. Demigryph Knights are still free to roam in the back line and knock things 45 feet through the air, screaming into the afterlife, and another rear charge coming in. Gonna tear out some more stuff. So yeah, the Demis have had free reign of the battlefield so far. They've always kind of been a nightmare for Bretonnia to deal with. Definitely one of the strongest anti-cav monsters cavalry in the game. In fact, there are very few monstrous cav in the game anyway. That'll be a game 3 territory when we see the Skull Crushers, Blood Crushers, and Mournfang. But until then, the Demigryph Knights are pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to that kind of role. And the Prophetess moved up, got a really nice wind blast, and almost got pinned by those demis, and she's still not out of the woods yet, but gonna retreat through the safety of her own men-at-arms and will manage to escape. Steam Tank roaming around in the back, and so is the Life Wizard getting shot by Peasant Bowmen and chased by the Paladins, and this is hilarious. Benny Hill theme, running across the desert, desperately trying to escape from them. I don't think the Jade Wizard's gonna be able to, though. We'll check on that in a second. Steam Tank, again, this is how you want to use it. You want to tear out some stuff, then get some space, move onto the flank of an enemy formation, fire down the length of it, and you can get tons of kills alternating between melee and range. Definitely doing lots of good stuff for me right now. And here we got the Paladins dueling the Jade Wizard, and he will go down. Anti-large, 390 weapon strength, way too much for a Life Wizard to deal with, and he is out of the picture. No more heals going the way of the Demigryph Knights. Steam Tank in a huge block of enemy infantry. Those are polearms. They do have AP, so probably doesn't want to stick around for too long. In a drag-it-out fight here, Steam Tank would get dragged to the muck and probably die, but it has the advantage of having a ton of mass, not a lot of speed, but more than enough to run away from dudes with syphilis, and they're going to tear her out. So the Empire State Troops have done a very admirable job of holding the line here. There are a couple of good infantry units on the field. The Beast Slayers of Bastogne polearm unit are there on the right flank. They're going to be able to carve their way through Empire Spearmen, no problem whatsoever. Beautiful shot from that Steam Tank going down the length of that formation, and he senses an opportunity here. Making some pancakes, boom, right to the center, and keep on trucking. My love for you is like a Steam Tank, Berserker, and just smack them in the face a couple more times. More tear outs going their way. So as we see how this battle progresses, I think it's fair for me to say at this point, but hold up, cannons firing in, Hammer of the Witches shredding through those Beast Slayers of Bastogne. That is so much goddamn fun to watch. That's awesome. We're just carving them up. But as we see how this battle's played out so far, I think we can say Grail Reliquae, 1 or 2 of those, if you're going to bring this many peasants, would have been incredibly beneficial for all this terror route. I mean, we've seen, again, peasants not going to have great leadership. That's never really been their forte. But if that's what you're worried about, and you're thinking they might be bringing a steam tank or Royal Altar of Gryphites, which is a very logical pick against Bretonnia, then having something that gives immune to Psych in an AoE would have been really useful here. Paladins are thinking about getting stuck in the middle of those demis. Just took a huge shot from the Hammer of the Witches. One of them, with this shot, actually going to go down to about half HP, 1800 health left. That's brutal. And actually, the Hammer of the Witches is better against single entities because it gets all of its damage done. There's some overkill on regular cab models, but on a single entity hero or lord or monster, all the damage will go their way and it gets their full use of that bonus versus large. But as they plunge into the reeking mire, lightning gonna touch down like the thunder gods of old. Ward save was active though. That Grand Shield of Faith from the Archlector, 22% resistance to all incoming damage, helped them survive. And of course, after that, Chain Lightning went veering off into the sunset. Steam Tank doing the chimichanga shake, the shuffle in the middle of the Bretonnian line, styling on them, just kind of taunting them as they all start routing. And those Paladins stuck in and amongst a bunch of Demigryph with halberds, they are not going to win that fight. That is pretty much going to put the nail in the coffin for the Peasants of Bretonnia. They'll kind of cycle back in a little bit more polearms moving up, some more Peasant Bowmen getting some shots, but this is out of their reach at this point. And to be completely fair, Shetland Apache and this Bretonnian build, it was trying stuff out, right? We're not used to playing on 40 unit cap, really. I personally don't play on it that much. I do enjoy battles like it when I go for more cinematic style stuff, which this, I think, was. It wasn't meant to be a cinematic style battle. It ended up being that simply because he had, what, 2,600 troops on the field. That's crazy to watch that. But it was one of those situations where he was trying out, okay, what can I do with a full swarm build? And honestly, the idea is not bad. You can definitely pull this off with Bretonnia. You can definitely pull it off with the Skaven. But you need things that grant you immune to psychology. So Lewin, with that beloved son, that kind of thing, or definitely those Grail Reliquae would be incredibly useful here. You want that AoE immune to Psych to keep them in the fight and tar pitting. It's not very useful when you've got hordes and hordes of peasants, and anytime they get touched by anything, they tear out. Steam Tank and Royal Altar of Gryphites were straight up hard counters to what he brought here. It's how the game works, right? A lot of this game comes down to army picks, and did I bring the right stuff in the right situation? In this game, I'd say the Empire with that elite build, it kind of had all the right answers to the swarm, the Peasanttide that was coming their way. Now, obviously, Bretonnia has lots of ways to counter what the Empire brings to the field. Questing Knights trade pretty well with Demigryph with halberds, actually. They have a ton of AP. Lewin can munch up Karl Franz, especially the Air Force battle, typically going to go the way of Bretonnia. And if this has been a more range-focused build for the Empire, with less elites and less terror, again, might have been able to utilize those numbers more and swarm. A bit of it came down to micro. There were definitely some mistakes with the Knights of the Realm getting shredded by the steam tanks and the cannons and stuff. But it's very hard to micro 40 unit cap, and it's something that you need to practice a lot more with, and something that I'm not amazing with either. It's just not something I'm used to. So it was really fun regardless. Good game to Shetland Apache. Hope you guys enjoyed.